You are listening to the Atheist Antidote Show. And now, your host, Brock Lemon.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brock Lawley. I am the Atheist Antidote. Thank you for joining the Atheist Antidote podcast. Appreciate you listening. Today I want to kick around this long time theory I've had. In fact, I've had it for so long that when I was much younger, I tried to write some little story about it because I thought it was somewhat of a clever idea. It never succeeded because I just thought it was total pretentious garbage, likely because it was just that. But the idea has always been an interesting one to me. I wanted to put some flesh on it in this podcast. And I called it at the time, I called it the tip of the triangle. That's what I ended up calling it. And if you can imagine all of human being, every human being, all of humanity, not all of human being, all of humanity, all of us together. If you can imagine us all being gifted, skilled, bestowed upon with various talents and abilities, all of which amazing actually in their own place, if wielded in the proper way. If you imagine us all having that, look at it as like a superpower. Your abilities, your God-given abilities, as unique as they often are like your individual superpower. Maybe it's an interesting way of looking at it. Except our system, and in pretty much any system, economic or social or anything you can construct on this earth, only lauds, praises, and successfully financially rewards certain talents. So let's call those the tip of the triangle. So in other words, if you find yourself great with numbers, you're probably going to get paid. If you're really, 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 really good looking and you can sing or act or dance, you're probably going to get paid if you can find your way into like the famous corner of that trade. If you're a professional athlete and you're 6'7", 300 pounds of solid muscle, you're probably going to find a paycheck on the end of those skills. So on and so forth is my point. There are certain talents, certain skills that are going to be rewarded. And I called those the tip of the triangle skills because if you imagine us all as humanity as one triangle, at the very tip of that triangle are these very specific things. Now, the thing is the rest of them all sort of fall down into the various remaining space of that triangle. And yet, they're all incredible skills. I'll give you an example. I have a sister who is a prodigy when it comes to children. She has been since she was like 8. And this isn't an overstatement. And it's certainly not, because I'm her brother. It's just true. And anybody who knows her can say it's true. She has an amazing God-given ability with children. It's just amazing to see her use it. And she went to college, and she has a degree in early childhood development, and so on and so forth. Now she raises her own children. Babysits a little bit, I think. It got me thinking, if that skill, she's so talented, it's so heads and shoulders above everybody else in this certain compartmentalized talent area, that if that area were playing basketball, she'd be in the NBA getting paid stupid, crazy, ridiculous money. But it just so happens to not be dunking a basketball. It happens to be raising and rearing and just generally interacting with children. And how many other analogies can you make? I mean, there's a million different skills that people have. Some people are just very, very good listeners. Some people are just empathetic. Some people just have an incredibly serving heart and, could put themselves last. I mean, these things are amazing talents if you think about them. But they really don't find a fiscal place. They're not making anybody any money. Or if they are, it's not that much money. They're not maybe something you pay $50 to buy a ticket to go see somebody perform these skills. But they're amazing talents. And I think the recipe to this problem isn't to start barking about different economic models that do that or do this. That's not what we do as a human race. I think what we start doing is we start vocalizing the attributes that we see in one another. How rare is that done? About 10 years ago, I made a commitment to myself that when I meet a person, and I like people. I mean, it's a passion of mine. I like people. They're the most interesting thing about living life, in my opinion. I'm a people watcher. I really like people. I interact with them very passionately, and I like people a lot. Every time I meet a person, it's like reading a new book. It truly is. You have all this different nuance to their disposition and personality. You have just a totally new way of looking at the world, a lens through which to look at that world if you get to know that person. But without fail, there's always that compartmentalized talent or superpower, in keeping with this cheesy analogy I have going on. But the thing I started doing was I just forced myself to put it into words. So when I saw it in said person, whoever that person is, be it a coworker or a person I meet at a dinner party, anybody really, I'll say the exact thing I see to them. You are good at this. You are unique at this. I have never come across somebody that has this. I admire this. You do this well, on and on and on and on. I think that's the remedy. I think it's the remedy because the people who don't have the tip of the triangle skills or superpowers or talents, they truly begin to think that the ones they do have are not talents, are not skills. It's just not true. It's not the case. In fact, without that lower half of the triangle, everything else would fall apart. Because all that stuff is the glue that binds everything together. I've discovered this to be true. And so, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I really believed in this. And I thought, how can I find ways of, putting flesh on this idea that I had? And I proceeded to write, a little cheesy script with a bunch of different scenes in it, which were inevitably not good enough for me to pursue. But I had worked on this character who was almost like a rip-off of some super-esque Superman type of thing, where he was just immensely talented at everything, essentially. Aesthetically, something pleasing to look at. He was talented in this area, talented in that area. He could sing, he could dance, he was smart. He could do a math theorem, on and on and on and on. Just everything, like the perfect human being. Well, what this character chose to do with his life and time is walk around the world, introducing himself to people, and then showing them their talent, showing them their skill. And it didn't come together, largely because even as I hear myself say it, it's just not a workable theory in script or story form. But the idea, though, the tip of the triangle idea, I think that's got a lot of truth to it. And if you have an idea as to how to better explain that, I'd appreciate it, because I think it's worthy of kicking around, putting flesh on, and figuring out. And I think it could encourage and profit a lot of people to hear it. Thank you for listening to the Atheist Antidote Show.
You are listening to the Atheist Antidote Show.
À propos des productions